again, I'm trying to check out this Mob Crush to see if this is actually working. I've been having issues with it, and I'm hoping that this will work. So I'm doing well, I think, on the Facebook, the YouTube side of things, but it doesn't appear to be working on the Facebook side. So maybe what I'll do. Okay, there we go. I see it. I'm now streaming on Facebook as well as YouTube. And what I'm going to do is just get this shared, and then I'll get going from there. Yeah, this is my first time actually getting this to work. Since Procreate has changed the way that they stream. Actually, they eliminated it, so I just wanted to make sure that I work out the kinks on this. Currently using Mob Crush and the iPad screen viewer, so we'll see how this works. Anyway, today I was working on some sketches earlier, and I decided that I'd like to go ahead and try to do some live sketching just to get back in the habit of it. It's been quite a while. It's been several months since I've done that, and again, that's because the software's changed. So let me get to sketching a little bit. So anyway, not really sure what I was going to work on. I was working on some character design for a story that I've been thinking about for quite some time. However, writing the story has been a kind of hitch for me because I don't like to write so much. But anyway, so what I'll do is really just work on some different character designs for the main character. And I think once I start developing some of that out more, I'll figure out exactly what the story is going to be. I made a story, but it wasn't as lively as I'd hoped. It was more or less a teaching type story, but I'd been thinking about it, and I wanted to push the creative bounds around it. So that's what I'm going to do, is just really focus on that side of it. Right now, I'm just thinking about styling that I want for it. Because I'm thinking, keeping it cartoonish, more like sitcom network cartoon. I can't even think of any names of cartoons right now, but just keeping it in that vein, keeping it simple, and really work on the creativity that's in it as opposed to making it highly detailed. And of course, the simple cartoons are not as simple as you think. A lot of people see it as like, oh, the simple lines, but yeah, they're pretty complex in terms of the way they do the production and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'll see if anybody comes on as I continue on with this. Oops, let me see if I can. But anyway, I really typically listen to music when I'm doing this, but I don't even know if Facebook or YouTube would just stop my stream altogether if I start putting some music behind it. So all I'm doing right now is just sketching and doodling, and I usually just do a variety of these just to get going. Right now I have nothing in mind, so I'm just scribbling. And once I start deciding on the characteristics and those kinds of things, then it really starts to take shape. Sometimes when I draw, I have a game plan in mind. If I'm doing, hey, what's up, Wakita? If I'm doing work for somebody else, then of course I already have a brief of what I'm going to do. But when I'm spitballing it, yeah, I just make it up as I go. And maybe I'll transition out of this and focus on my daily posts. And usually for that, I'll sometimes look up reference like streetwear and street gear. So I may do that. Let's see. Hold on 1 second. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, what I'm doing right now is just looking on my computer as I stream this. There we go. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. So anyway, right now, like I said, just doodling. And I'm thinking about keeping the character in shorts because I wear shorts all the time. Again, just thinking of some simple designs, and then I'll start trying to figure out exactly what the character does and start designing around that. So as you can see, I usually keep my sketches pretty loose. Keep it scribbly like, and I tend to do this for most of the drawings I do, whether they be live, whether they be photorealistic or not. I'll try to get sketches, and sometimes I'll get even more scribbly than this. Anyway, one of the things I was thinking about before I started sketching, that I was thinking about, like I mentioned, playing some music. And with that, I was wondering, because like I've had videos stopped before, but I'm thinking that, why don't these streaming services just pay the royalties for us since they're utilizing our content anyway? Maybe that's something that's being done now, but I don't know, because it's streaming on their platforms. They're making all the money from it. So why don't they revenue share with the musicians so that more people, one, will play their music, and two, they'll get more streams and more hits on their videos, which again drives their revenue because they can sell ads against it and those kinds of things. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff I think about. Randomly, rather. So again, the story I was thinking about was a kid's story. And again, all I'm going to do right now is just come up with just different sketches of what this kid could look like. The idea I had was based around a little boy. I'd come up with some ideas for a little boy story years ago. I was calling it Quentin's Got a Calling, but I don't know. I just wanted to do some exploration, because sometimes you can stop your ideation too short, and the ideas that you come up with may be stifled because you haven't put enough effort into it. So all I'm doing again is just randomly sketching. And what this is right here is just blocking out shapes. Blocking out shapes just so I can get the general idea out. And then I can always go back and add detail, which is typically what I do. Yeah, I should see if MobStream can stream to Instagram. Yep, still using the Procreate app. Like for me, I've tried using some of the other apps on the iPad, but Procreate for me is pretty intuitive. I've been using it for quite some time, and I think it's intuitive because I put the effort into learning it. But yeah, I love it. I tried Affinity, uh, but it just didn't have the feel that for me. And all I'm doing right now is I'm erasing. Sometimes like just to really trying to push some of the designs, and I'll scrap a sketch in a heartbeat. So right now I'm just letting you guys into my process in terms of like quick sketching. Because for me the goal is just to really right now is just shape exploration. Just trying to figure that out. Let me know if this is showing up pretty good for you guys, because I don't know. And I don't know when you're seeing it. So, like I said, this is my first time actually utilizing Mob Crush. I've been trying to figure it out for some time, and I finally understood it more today. So, okay, thanks. Because ironically, I can't see anything on my screen, so I don't know how this is working out on Facebook rather. Because I'm streaming to YouTube as well, but I don't really have any presence on YouTube as of yet. I'm trying to work on that. But right now, I'm just working on just some poses and some sketches for potential kid. It's all kind of the same kid, but just really figuring out the look and feel that I like of it. As you can see, I'll zoom in and out. I was freezing up off and on. Okay, thanks for letting me know that, because I can't tell. That's another thing with streaming. Since it's not necessarily a direct stream, it's by proxy. Oops, I was wiping my screen off. And so I can't tell how it's working out. So thanks for the feedback. And again, just right now, just working on character. Um, and so I have no story in mind. So again, I'm just working on different poses, making up some scenarios for the poses as I go. Maybe he's holding. Alright. And one of the things that I've just practiced doing over the years, which is actually how I got started drawing online again, is just getting used to not being perfect and letting people see my process and not worrying about if I mess up and those kinds of things. Um, because the important part for me is just making sure that, one, I just get started, and because you can always clean up later, and two, just by doing the work, you'll come up with ideas you wouldn't have had before anyway. So, not going for masterpiece, just going for thought ideation right now. Again, maybe he's like exploring something. And plus, once I get the idea for the character down, then I can really start pushing the designs more. But right now, it's just super loose. Is it still choppy right now? I can't tell. But like I said, I can't even see it on my screen. So let me go back and see if I can actually view it. Okay. See that it's showing up. I think. Yeah, Facebook is so wonky I can't even tell. So I just have to trust the feedback I'm getting. See, let me try to think of some other design. Like I said, I like doing shapes. Just really working around shapes, and also shapes help in terms of being able to turn the character in space. So once you understand the shape of the character, and you can start manipulating them. On a basic stance. At this point, it's just scribbling. I don't really worry about the proportions as much at this stage. It's just really just exploration. Like right now, I'm not liking any of these designs, but that's why I'm trying to bang them out as fast as possible. And it's really just getting my hand loose. If you can see, I can't tell if it's showing up or not, but my movements are really quick and sketchy, just so I can get my hand loosened up. And then the more loose my hand gets, the better my shapes are. So I don't really care about proportions. I worry about that in cleanup. I had talked about it a little bit when I was discussing when I made up the Coin magazine characters. If you saw some of my earlier sketches, I may go to them just so you can see. They look nothing like the end result. And for me, the goal with these, like I said, is just ideation, getting the idea out. So think about this as these are like thumbnail sketches for me. And so when I think about that, I just again, just to get the idea out, get it banged out, and then I can start refining it from there. So proportions, not necessarily a big deal for me at this point. Sometimes working on character design, I will just start drawing other stuff just to get my mind going. Proportions, because I'm trying to keep, like, in terms of shape language, I'm trying to keep this one more, like I said, shape oriented and less human proportion like in terms of realistic proportions. So right now, just working through some ideas. And sometimes just coming up with like the type of clothes or whatever they'll wear, it helps to make up other ideas. So you get on like a coat and some boots. Again, some shorts. Sanctuary looks a little older because the proportions are a little different. So again, just really trying to get the idea out. So get on a different kind of fit. Get on a scarf, boots, and some shorts. What kind of climate that is, I have no idea, but it's just what he's wearing today. And just give him some asymmetry here by just adding a pocket square. Again, if I start running out of ideas, then I'll just go on the internet and just start looking up street clothes. Sometimes I can't think of any clothes because I wear pretty much t-shirts and shorts all the time, so I'm not a fashion guy. So I'll do some scrolling online just to see what other people wear. And again, it's just all about getting ideas out. Just thinking about poses. Maybe jumping. I'm just trying to think of what that'll look like. Right now I'm not looking at any references. So I'll just sketch it out, and then if I really want to figure out what the body movements look like or the body angles, then I'll look up some references just to get an idea of how it should look realistically in terms of perspective, just to get an idea on perspective. That's one thing. When I started drawing again recently, because it's been years, it was like probably almost a 8-year gap from when I just stopped drawing altogether. And so when I started back, I would just draw, and I didn't realize that other artists actually use references for their drawings. I thought they were just making everything up out of their head. I mean, of course, it's their skill set, but I thought that they would, like, they just knew anatomy and never looked at anything. So I'm trying to get back and trying to develop the habit of actually looking at references, because most of the time, especially when I used to go on live streams before, I never looked up anything. I just drew from, just scribbled, kind of like I'm scribbling now, and didn't have any references in mind. And so I've been studying like certain things. So in terms of proportion, if he was to be more realistic, then his elbow and his from his elbow to his wrist, and from his elbow to his shoulder would be equidistant. Just so you know. And the hardest thing for me sometimes to draw is just simple stuff. That's why I admire people that do cartoons, because they do so much with very little work. For me, it just depends, man. Like right now, I don't see anything. I just sketch. I have ideas like, okay, let me do this pose, and let's see what can come out of this pose. Other times, I'll have an idea of what I'm shooting for, and then I'll draw it till it looks the way I want it to. I don't necessarily have the exact image in mind, because that's the purpose of the ideation for me. But as you can see, like I'm super loose. I mean, I'll watch some other artists online, and they'll do like sketching and everything every line they make looks like it's on purpose, and I'm like, man, these cats are just too good. But for me, I'm super loose and scribbly. Um, because if I, like I said, I made live stream me taking a piece from this phase all the way to polish rendering, just so you could see exactly what that looks like for me, how I go about doing it. Because you'll be able to see my screen, like when I click on the colors and all those things, and you'll see how I just go about slowly piecing everything together. And as you can see, the more I do it, the more I draw, then the more loose everything becomes. The more my shapes get a little better. Um, my drawings get a little more readable, at least for other people. I mean, I know what I'm going after. Um, and again, it's just really just working on just the concept. And again, right now I'm just drawing, thinking of the concept of a little boy. I have some other sketches of them already, and I may go back to those as reference because I spent a little more time on those. But I was like, maybe I'll just do some live ideation. And I actually should be looking at some reference right now, just as I'm thinking about how to draw them, how to make them appealing, that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking of like little kids. Is their proportions are a lot different than adults. I don't really draw little kids a lot, so but anyway, it's this phase where you can mess up and not really worry about it because you know it's not going to be, well, typically it's not anything anybody else is going to see, but since I'm live streaming, you obviously see it. But it's this phase that I try to not care about anything just so I can try new possibilities that I normally wouldn't explore. And the good thing about drawing digitally is you have so much at your disposal. What's up, B? It's my brother watching. But you have so much at your disposal that you can work with that is a lot easier to just try new things that you normally haven't tried before. I always like to give them curly hair just so you know, give a hint of their ethnicity. Another thing, speaking of which, another thing I want to start working on more, draw more like creatures. I really don't draw a lot of creatures, so I was gonna start working on that just to show range of ideas, just because. And, exploring these just It's really about the shapes. Oh yeah, I love cartoon work. I prefer cartoon work over anything else. Actually, that's why the majority of my drawings are around, kind of look that way. Uh, and actually, most of the projects I take on are cartoon related because cartoons are fun. They're fun to do. Just scribbling like this, I could do this all day, which is what I do. And so I definitely love that. And which is funny is when I was in school, I went to school for graphic design, and I had an art teacher, and like I used to love realism, photorealism, and now you got dudes that do hyper realism. I used to love that type of work. I used to like study those artists all the time, and then it was just literally something switched when I just started like paying attention to the cartoons. Start paying attention. Of course, I've always loved cartoons, but it was just something, the whole picture can tell 1,000 words and all of that kind of stuff. Watching cartoons made me realize that, man, if a picture can tell 1,000 words, then an animation can tell millions, right? So that's the way I looked at it, and from then on, it's really where my interest started being. One thing about the digital side of stuff, if you saw that mark, is sometimes when I try to move my canvas around, because I have a screen protector on it, so it marks up everything. So you may see like a random mark like that or something, and that's because I'm touching my screen and trying to zoom in sometimes, and it'll just do that. And plus, if you see, I'll build up shapes. That's one thing that I've been getting in the habit of, just building up shapes. And if you start seeing everything in shapes, then it makes it easier to draw. Sometimes I'll just scribble like that, just to figure out like the dimension, or draw like ovals for the cylinder, just to make sure that there's depth in whatever I draw. Right now, I'm not necessarily so much worried about it, but sometimes I'll just do it on top of what I'm doing. Got him grabbing a rock over here. Maybe I'll change his expression a little bit, like he's looking at somebody. If they're trying to do something, and he's thinking how he's gonna get out of the situation. So yeah, exactly, definitely. Which is what I talked about earlier, Lamont. So is that once if you do more shape stuff, then you understand the volume and space. My man Lamont does animation, so he does this way more than I do. But one of the things that I've really been focused on in terms of the storytelling side, like Bilal was asking, is just really getting in the habit of drawing all the time, so that I can at least tinker with the idea of doing animation. I'm just tinkering with it, because before I used to draw, I couldn't see how anybody could do animation because of how much work goes into it. And animating, the cats that do animation, those are some of your best. No, you're good, bro. Cats that do animation, man, those are some of your best artists, which people don't really even realize, because they draw so much that those cats, man, they're monsters. It may not seem like it because the stuff that they draw looks simple, but yeah, those cats are beasts. So I have huge admiration for animators and storytellers. Again, gotta give them some shorts. Maybe I'll give some other kids some pants or something, or a space suit or something. But Just thinking of this the simplistic side, and maybe I'll add more stuff to it. So I was just trying to make him looks like okay. Because one of the concepts of the story that I was thinking about was kids dealing with bullies and those kinds of things. There are a lot of things that address that stuff. So I'm trying to expand my mind on the type of story I want to tell. Whoops. See, here's another one of those marks. And where I want to go with it. So maybe it's, I don't know. I thought about some plot twists and things like that with the story, but that's more of an involved story as opposed to a normal picture book. So again, right now my ideas are just all over the place. Just really fine tuning what I want to do and how I want to do it. But in the meantime, I shall just keep drawing. This kid like a big lollipop head. Solid body. Maybe I always have to at least draw somebody in a hoodie at least one point, so I might as well make it now. So like I said, another thing for me is just like going back to the search for clothing, because I'll draw the same clothing over and over just because it's type of stuff I like. And I'll try to switch it up to where, and again, these are just guidelines that I draw just so I can keep an idea of what the depth is like, or how their heads turned. And for some reason, I like the concept of shorts and like bulky, a bulky top, like a jacket or something. Even though I don't do that, it just is interesting to me that you could be warm down low and cold up top. I'll draw a different set of eyes here. The thing that also I like about cartooning is it has its own set of rules. And so it's so wide open in terms of the stuff you can do, the stuff you can make. And there are no guidelines around it. Other than if you're doing a book or animation, is other than keeping it to model, but outside of that, there's really no guidelines around it. You create all the rules, you create the world, you create what's supposed to work and what's not. So you have a lot of leeway. And so I think the bigger picture is just getting it out, getting the story out, getting the concept out, getting the idea out. And even if your artwork is not the best, people will value the storyline of it and the feelings that you convey. Everything doesn't have to be Disney pretty, but I do love Disney movies, by the way. Let's see, I'm trying to think of a different kind of, maybe I'll give them like crisscross type braids or something. And all of these details I would work out if I decided to pursue the character design a little bit further. Because my original character was bald. A little kid with no hair. I'm gonna give him glasses. I'll switch the color. Think about some glasses. Actually, you know what? I'll give them accessories on a different layer, just in case I decide to do something with this one. Some black rims. And another good thing that I usually like adding other colors is I can really work on the accessories a little more without messing up the original drawing. Sometimes you may like the character and it's like, okay, I like this shape, I like the shapes of him, let me try something else, right? And then if you do too much on the same layer, then you gotta draw it over, which is one of the reasons I'm not an animator, because if I can avoid drawing something over and over, I will. But on the other hand, sometimes I'll do it just to practice the process of drawing. It's hard getting rid of those computer ideas. That's the reason I like software, so you can just copy and paste stuff as opposed to having to do it repeatedly over and over, or you can automate tasks. So I gotta change my mentality sometimes. And a lot of this stuff may not look like anything, but I can read it. I can read the shapes that I'm going after. Okay, so we got that. I'll switch my color back. And again, just ideating on different concepts of what this kid could look like. Because in my mind, he's a smaller kid. And so that's why the body is shaped the way it is. I'm not making him like a big kid. Because again, in this world, I was thinking about the concept of bullies and that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to keep his frame kind of petite, so to speak. Funny thing is, it probably look nothing like any of these sketches, because the sketches I've done so before this, he looks nothing like it. So I'm trying to figure out. Give him a hat, like stuff like references. Like right now, this in my mind, this is what a hat looks like. But I'll look at a reference and just make sure that it's lining up. Just because sometimes what's in your mind is not what something is. So again, just for right now, I'll add that. Clean him up later. It's funny, after I did that, it made me think about the little kid on Stranger Things, even though that wasn't my intent. I'm just trying to switch his hair up. So that actually makes me want to give him different eyeballs. Make him a little bigger. Add a little more to his. Keep it subtle. Yeah, if you all have any ideas on what kind of kid shapes I can make, definitely let me know. Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Uh, that's really why I started doing this. I talked about it on the video I did with Coindonomics, and actually I talk about it with just about everybody. Um, in terms of, he said the world needs more cartoons with characters of color and ethnicity, and that's really what kind of solidified me doing this. Was I want to see Into the Spider Verse. I've been following, I've been doing the cartoon stuff for probably about 2 years now. But when I saw the movie, I heard a lot of great reviews about it. When I saw the movie, it literally blew me away. And the character, Miles Morales and his family, just the whole concept of having. And it's not even like he was the first black superhero. I mean, you had Black Panther this last year as well, but it was just so awesome because it had, relevant, you know cultural dialogue that you're familiar with. And when I saw it, I was like, man, this movie's awesome. And then I took my kids to see it, and again, the reaction that they had to it made me realize that this is something that I wanted to do. So that's really what started kicking it into high gear for me in terms of pursuing illustration. Don't get me wrong, I'm still gonna do tech to some degree, maybe even incorporate it into tech. But that's really what set me over the top when I saw that. And even from the standpoint of, yeah, I lost my train of thought, of work, it just really, yeah. Oh wow, I didn't even realize that it was first Oscar for a black director for an animated film. But yeah, when I saw that, man, it just it let me know that this is the path that I need to go on with my life. If I'm not doing some form of art and also doing it from a cultural perspective, then I think I'd be wasting my time on this earth personally. And that's not to say I won't be doing other stuff. I have a ton of interest, but art is definitely, and just representation is definitely at the top of my list. So that's why I talk about the subject matter that I talk about quite often. I talk about race all the time. So I study it, just so I'm not just jumping to conclusions on stuff. But anyway, just going to those relevant, things that affect our kids, affect us, affects, the way people deal with us. Just all of those things. I understand. We talk about on Two Shot Guys how, powerful media is. It can be used for good or bad, and my choice is to figure out ways to utilize it for good. So, yeah, that's my little philosophical reason of why I do art and the kind of art I do. It just resonates with me. When I was younger, I used to be really heavy into comic books, but again, which is odd, after I fell in love with photorealism, cartoons was the next phase of my love for art. And ever since I've been dabbling with it off and on, but it just really, for me, just made that kind of impact that is necessary. That's why when I take on like portraits, things like that, I ask them, I'm like, if you don't like cartoons, then I'm not your guy. I can send you to somebody that'll do something else. I can do that stuff. I just don't want to, because my focus is to get better at this and improve on this, improve on character design, and make relevant stuff. Oh, thanks, Hillary. I appreciate it. But yeah, so this will actually be the first of many of these things, because I put in, whoops, so I have the eraser selected. So, but I put in hours every day working on this stuff. And this right now is just the scribble stuff. If I'm working on a piece, it'll usually take me about, depending on the complexity, I'll probably start working on more complex pieces. But it's difficult to do that and post regularly on social media. So if you noticed, past couple of days I've been posting like more sketches, like in my stories, just to keep a presence going. but I will be focused more on like more detailed, larger images as time goes on, just so I can get that practice in. But you'll see a lot of that stuff more so in game art. Is there a skinny, lanky kid? Yeah, not the main character. I'll probably make him thin. Here, I'll show you some of the other characters real quick. If I can get to them without seeing too much. Let's see. Yeah, I got so many different. Okay. So here's some of the original characters. I wasn't sure if I was going to show these or not, but oops. So I'll do that. I'll do that. So this is. I'm going through trying to figure out where he was. Yeah. So this was one of the original designs I did. And again, I had these right here. And again, I had these 4 different images because I was gonna do different poses with lanky, but you can tell not necessarily lanky, but you can tell he's thin by his limbs, and the proportions are a lot different than the other characters I just did. Yeah, and so that's kind of why I was designing it that way. And so that's kind of why I was designing it that way. I wanted to use for bullying. Because I wanted to dive into that. I was going to do it a little bit differently. You know, I wasn't going to have necessarily different balance in it, but of course, scenario and different kids in the scenario and that kind of how I would do that. But anyway, it's really been thinking about how I would do that. But anyway, this is one of the original designs. I may go back to it and then I kind of streamlined it to look more like. I'll show you the family lineup. I think I have a family lineup. I'll show you the family lineup. I think. Nope. The group. Nope. 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 Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I had an actual family lineup, and I don't even remember where that is. Nope. 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 Oh, you know what? Maybe it's not even in that one. Yeah, here's the family lineup. So these are his friends. This is his family: his mom, his dad, his sister, one of his friends. And I thought about making the one kid a bully, but I was like, nah, maybe not. Oh, the sound is distorted. Yeah, sorry about that. Again, I'm using Mob Crush, or I think that's what it's called, to stream. So, but anyway, this is what the lineup as of right now looks like. I'll probably tweak it just to add more shape variation in it. But this is where my thoughts were initially with the characters. I still like them. I like some of the shapes, but again, just exploring different aspects of how it will look. So anyway, I'll go back to what I was doing. So it's the Q story. Like I said, his name was Q. It was originally in my mind when I first made it, and I posted like artwork years ago called Quentin's Got a Calling, but over time I've been rethinking how it is. And when I first came up with the story, I didn't even have kids, so my idea around the storyline has changed quite a bit since then. Anyway, those were the lineup and how it looked. Thinking about making it a little more loose, like this guy, real loose drawing. We'll see though. But anyway, it's still sketching away. And also the hard part for me is keeping in mind the type stuff that I like different art styles, so that always makes me change stuff. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, Bilal, in terms of having a character with a disability or wheelchair. I've definitely been thinking about that. I've actually done some designs of some characters that have disabilities, um, but I haven't really pursued them as of yet. Some of the ideas that I've scribbled down have that in mind. I know. I'm trying to think of his name. I think it's not Leonard. His last name is Leonard. He has like a whole superhero team that have different disabilities, for lack of a better term, and so he's been doing that uh, for quite some time. And I like where his characters are going and the kinds of things that they can do. But I've been rethinking my own version of what that would be and how that would be utilized. And really for me is just figuring out the storyline and how to utilize it to its fullest potential, if that makes sense. So, but to answer your question in short, yeah, I have. So anyway, let me get back to my sketching here. And this will be more of a longer character, but I want him to be short, so that's why all the body he's got an extremely large head. So again, just I want to keep him like a lighthearted kid that sees the positivity in pretty much everything. So that's why all his eyebrows are pretty much uplifted, just to show like a light. He's really not tense, so his eyebrows are pretty loose. And what's funny to me is that for some reason, of all the things that I draw in Procreate or on my iPad, the hardest thing for me to draw is eyes. And they're like the simplest shapes ever. But it's the hardest thing for me to draw on pencil and paper. I'm fine. But for some reason, it just doesn't. My mind doesn't work well with the concept of eyes digitally. I don't know why. This is not just a new issue either. I'll probably do a few more sketches of this, and then I'll probably do my IG post for the day. Start working on that. Yeah. See, I'm streaming on YouTube as well, but I don't even know if anybody's making any comments on it. I doubt it, because I don't have any followers on YouTube. Make his eyes a little larger. Make them more vertical. You can see I got like a chalky style brush. Whoops, can't do that. This is an oval sketch brush. I like the chalky look. I'll give him a fro just to add a difference. There's a pocket. But yeah, again, I just go through these ideas quite a bit, so I'll try to keep talking because sometimes I'll just be thinking about what I want them to look like, and so I'll just quit talking and start sketching. So work with me, bear with me rather. Yeah, that's about true. I remember Wally, that dude had a beard when we were 12. Like, he had a full beard. I got you. Sometimes I try to work on keeping the drawing loose as well. Even though I know his hand should be a little bigger. I'll give him the 4 fingers. There's the 5 fingers of death. Do the cartoon 4 fingers. Yeah, here's your bearded character. I'll give him a baby face proportions rather. Baby face with a beard. This is the one kid that hit puberty before everybody else. So I'll give him the bling. He's still a kid, but his priorities are a little different. A nice blend on the fade. There you go. So yeah, maybe do one more and then I'll ready switch up my styles completely different in a sec. So I'll do some cartoon like these style, and sometimes I go into more detail and I'll do more random things. Sit like a kid in red glasses are my crew in this school. Take care. Take care, Hillary. Yeah, so just really just switching some stuff up. I try not to get locked in on one thing, even though I try to practice similar things as much as possible, just so I can get better at it. And this is my standard template for these type faces. I scribble them out. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna switch the eyes up just a bit. He's looking kind of mean. A little bit more of a side face. Thicker brows than the other ones. And some blocks. This is the first kid I made with a neck. Give him a neck. Yeah, and also with this, as opposed to the other sketches I showed, just not thinking as much about the replication side of it, because sometimes if I start thinking about the process to making it too much, then it'll limit my design. And I'll keep it as simple. I'll keep it as simple as possible, just so I can draw it over and over. But just trying to really get out of that habit. Of course, you need to think about production, but you also just need to be free in terms of the character design process. So that's actually what my purpose of today was really just thinking more about that process, more so than how it's going to be designed later. A lot of these details don't look like much, but it gives me an idea for when I come back later and work on it some more. I'll jump all over the place with designs. Yeah, I think it's pretty good little variation. Wasn't trying to make any two characters look the same. There are a lot of similarities between them, but what I would normally do is just go through and pick a style shape. Like I kind of like the proportions on this guy. This kid I could use later, not necessarily for this story. This kid is more like your Cartoon Network style in terms of shape. This guy was just starting off, just getting the idea out. This guy, I like certain aspects of him. He may be a fill-in character, but I wouldn't make him a main character. This kid definitely a character. This kid actually has potential. It's way different than I initially thought the character should look like if you saw the other sketches, but he has potential to be a main character. we'll see. Not necessarily for this story. This kid right here, the style more so than anything else. There's a comical face. This guy was warm up, so I don't see him in anything. This kid as well, background character maybe. This kid, background character maybe, likewise for him. So again, just really just looking at it and seeing what I like about it, what I don't, and probably just more ideation to come. Just really thinking about that. So my next thing I'm gonna work on is my post for the day. So I may just create a whole nother image. And so in Procreate, just create a new. Typically do a square for social media, but I'm actually gonna go back and create screen size, and I'm doing this specifically because I'm thinking about where else I would post this, and so thinking about things like Dribble or maybe Behance. But now I'm thinking about it. I may go back with the square because I won't post this one on Dribble. I'll post it on Behance. So I'll just go to my square here. And right now, one of the things I've been trying lately is really just focusing on silhouettes and then the drawing. Just giving that the attempt. And just going about it from there. So right now what I'll do is I'll go look online for some streetwear images, because like I said, I don't necessarily wear anything other than t-shirts and shorts. So I'll just scan the internet, type in streetwear in Google, and just go look for some potential images. Sometimes you can find good images on Instagram, but I hate the Instagram search, personally. Because the tags aren't necessarily, everything's not tagged right or the way I need it to be tagged. So sometimes I look for streetwear images in other countries. But one thing I can do right now before I even do any of that is I can think about the kind of poses I'd like. And so what I'll do is just like some quick thumbs, and for my thumbs, this is how I'll just start off with my silhouettes. And I'll clean these up. But I know I tend to draw a lot of people with hands in pockets, and I gotta get beyond that. And then what I'll do with the silhouettes with these thumbnails is I'll create the thumbnails, get the body shapes that I like down. And then you can add detail with the eraser if you need to. Just really focusing on shape language, and so I need to figure out if I'll draw a guy or a girl that I don't know yet. I've been drawing dudes lately, so I might draw a female. Yeah, I think I know why I tend to draw people with their hands in their pocket, because if you look at street fashion, everybody has a hand in the pocket somehow. And again, all I'm doing right now is shape language, so it's not really meant to look like much beyond that, at least not for me. Other people who go into more detail, they may draw it lighter so they can stack the layers of the character, like the different shading, as opposed to having a straight opaque silhouette. So it's different for different people. And let me post this in Two Shy Guys group. So yeah, maybe I'll come up with an action pose and then put the street clothes on them. Something a little different as opposed to finding a pose from somebody. Maybe that's what I'll do. Yeah, for me it's not an exact science, so to speak. It's just really just I'll just go through a series of these to come up with an idea or concept. Another thing I didn't think about before I got on the live stream is I'd get hungry. I didn't think about that. So we'll see how long I go. Right now I'm still sketching random poses I'm seeing online, and like if you want to know why everybody has a hand in the pocket, it's because everybody online does. I think it's because people don't know how to position their hands when they're posing sometimes. So just to get rid of the awkward feeling, they put their hands in their pocket. So a lot of people tend to have their hands in their pocket. And also doing the silhouettes, it just helps you think about space as well, and how you want to have everything in space, especially if you have multiple characters that you're working on. It helps just to think about making sure there's a difference between the characters and the way they look in terms of shape language. And plus, in terms of building a character out, it's a whole lot easier erasing solids than it is line work, because you got to replenish the line work. And not to say that you won't have to, but it just makes it a lot quicker. So I'd work on this pose. If I go with this pose, I'd clean it up, but I don't do right now. Again, all of this stuff for me, which is another thing that's pretty difficult for me. I'm so used to churning out work that it's sometimes difficult for me to just get settled on one thing, or get settled on something that's gonna take a while. So that's another reason why I practice so much. So maybe if I increase my skill, then I can keep the same speed with better detail. So that's my theory anyway. I think I may have the pose I want. And then also I just think about, sometimes I think about style, like the style I want to make a particular character. I like like I said, I like so many different styles that sometimes I have to think about that ahead of time. Else, and that'll also dictate my proportions, kind of proportions I want. That's very difficult. This poses of a female. And then also going back to the study of this stuff, like, so if I go more realistic, then there's certain things that that you have to think about in terms of proportion. Like the size of the hand is typically the size of your face. So, and of course, like, there are always exaggerations. Hold on one sec. Yeah. Okay, I'm back. Get this background music popping real quick. See if I'll get knocked off.
Design a beautiful online store fast.
For playing some music, but typically I have something. I'm usually watching documentaries or something when I draw, because I'm usually doing it so long. See if we can get some background music playing before they. Yeah, so focusing in on, I think I may draw this image. I kind of like what she's wearing. Female online. Of course, I'm going to stylize it a bit. I like it because it's different than some of the stuff I normally draw. There's like kind of African look about her. So yeah, so sometimes I'm usually hesitant to draw women because, one, I didn't spend a lot of time drawing them growing up. I was always drawing superheroes, and also like dudes you can typically, I don't know, they don't have to be as pretty. I'll put it that way. So yeah, I think I may go with this one just to settle. And so what I do from this point, once I've decided on something, I'll go ahead and single it out, and I'll give it its own layer. Let me zoom out so I can see what I'm doing. Now give total credit to the artist. I mean to the photographer. On this particular one, this photographer, his name is Osborne Macaria. Actually, I saw him. A friend posted his work. He's working with somebody I know on a project, and so I just was scrolling through his portfolio. I saw this lady. It's actually an old image. So, but and what I usually do is, instead of like going completely with an image, I'll find an image I like, and then I'll look at other images and I'll embellish it and add new stuff to it. Because again, my goal is not to copy what's there, is to get ideas and create original content based off the ideas that are generated. So that's what I'm doing right here. When I go make images from online, and actually this particular image, the proportions will change quite dramatically. I think now that I look at it when it's zoomed in, because I want to make the proportions a little more full. But this is enough to give me an idea of where I want to go. So what I'll do is drop the opacity and go from there. And I'll export probably this particular image once I'm done the process video. And again, this is what I'll do in terms of, I'll go to canvas, and I'll usually turn my drawing guide on. I'll do symmetry. I'm not going to draw it symmetrically, but for me, having this line in the middle, you can see how crooked this drawing is. Having that line in the middle for me allows me to keep the proportions or keep the drawing from skewing. And so I'll move it back, and so I'll do that just to have that guide there, so I don't get off course, because sometimes excuse me, my drawings will skew based on how I'm sitting or whatever, because the reason I have to stream from my screen as opposed to from my phone when I do drawings is because I move my iPad around like a piece of paper, and so it's never in one location. So yeah, anyway, for those of you that's still watching, thank you for checking out my process. So right now all I'm doing is really just mapping it in. I should probably actually use and I may do it on cleanup, use the drawing assist. And what the drawing assist does, like in the way that I have it right now, it allows me to draw one side of the character, and I can draw one side and it'll map it and mirror it on the other side. So it definitely comes in handy for sure. So anyway, just really thinking about the proportions of her upper body here, because she's kind of not symmetrical, so it'll make it a little hard to do the drawing assist. But I'm just thinking about overall shape. And in here, when I'm thinking about her shape in particular, I'm just really trying to get the essence down of her underlying body. So her hips are, well, they're really not swiveled that much, but I may make them that way. And again, I'm really drawing my own proportions here, and on my limited knowledge of anatomy, And I want to make her legs just a little bit longer. And for me, sometimes this is the harder part, is really figuring out, it's not the one side, is making the other side match. So, and then also figuring out how I want her feet to point. In the one image reference I'm looking at in terms of the body position, her feet are pointed forward. It just doesn't look right to me. And sometimes if something doesn't look right in an image, like the actual picture, then is more difficult for me to draw it, to draw that angle. So I'll make her feet go slightly to the side. Yeah, I think I like that look right there. I want to make sure she has some curvature here. And normally I don't draw full body, but I've been just practicing full body just because I normally don't draw it. So in order to get better at something, you gotta stretch yourself. So that's kind of what a lot of these postings are. I've said it many a time. Sometimes a lot of the stuff I post I don't necessarily like. I just do it just to get in the habit of posting and getting in the habit of critique, being critiqued, or putting myself out there to be critiqued. And then drawing live actually just keeps me accountable. So, okay, I like the shape so far. And let me share this. Oops. Okay, just trying to see where I am. And here I'm just working on the shapes. Getting my shapes down. Oops. Then I always have to recalibrate the actual lengths here. Let me undo that. So for legs. So typically, I believe the arms are typically the length of the torso without the head, and the legs are typically the length of the torso with the head. Kind of pushing the exaggeration a bit. And so right now, I'm just thinking about the hands here and their placement, not necessarily yeah. There we go. And then I'll adjust back to that. Adjust the shape back to that. There we go. Just making sure I keep my proportions in terms of arm length similar. Let me check to see how long my stream has been going. So in Procreate, you can always check your canvas, look at canvas information. Okay, it's 7:32, so I've been going about 20 minutes, 23 minutes, maybe a little longer. I'm not sure just yet. So all I'll do is create another layer, then I'll dim it out, and then this is where I'll start working on the design in terms of clothing, what this woman's wearing, and further refine the body shape. So she's wearing a romper. I think that's what. No, actually, she's not. She's wearing a different layer, like a shirt and shorts. They're just the same color in the image I'm looking at. So I'll start with that, and then I'll add a little more to it. Because again, my goal is not to replicate what's there, but to create some ideas based off of what's given. And I like it, strong black woman. Some jewelry on. Even though her image doesn't puff out, I always like that kind of look right there. So she has this like a 3-strap belt on. So, oops. The shirt kind of flares, but I'm thinking about extending it just a little. Making it almost like a dress. Scribbling in the details. And the details to our gear. Still not sure how I want to render this just yet. So once I usually get the outer layer, I still got more stuff to add though. I'll just add a little, see the idea. Typically when I do this stuff, I do this just to start really figuring out how I want to, like where the details are, and then I may do another pass just to get the details a little tighter. Because I still don't know how I'm going to render it. And then from here, what I'll do is I'll save that. Save the images so I keep track of where I am. And also if I post it, sometimes I like to post the process images as well as the video. essentially just painting in where the hand, I want the hand to be. Just really focusing on detail, even though it doesn't look like much right now. This just helps me, especially when it's time to render. Just getting the hand shape. So I like to really scribble in the details, because then it's like I can shape everything after the fact. Sometimes hands can be a bugbear. Another layer of OB. Oops, I will not do that. Just blocking out face shape. Ran it out. So the face is where I would normally do the symmetry part of it, just to make sure everything's lining up how it's supposed to. This is where I would do the symmetry. You can see it's slightly, you see that blue line? My symmetry is slightly off. Looking at this, I'm thinking if I need to simplify it anymore. Sometimes I like to keep my lines simple, and this may be a little too much in some areas, because I'm not going for a comic book look, I'm not going for a photorealism look, I'm going somewhere in between comic book and cartoon, and sometimes it's hard to walk those, like the tightrope of that. And again, all I'm doing is just banging out the outline for this. Yeah, I'm still not sure about the feet. They just seem a little too blocky to me. I want more smooth lines. What I'm doing right now is just creating a new layer, outline layer. I want lines to be a little more smooth. Typically what I'll do, I'll create another group, and then I'll duplicate that group and flatten it. So that way I can just lighten it as such. What I'm doing right now is just going over it. Making these legs just I understand her feet have to be big enough to support her base. But I don't know, I'm just really thinking about reevaluating these feet and the way they come out. Right now, all I'm doing is just focusing on one side of the illustration. So I'll just use the symmetrical tool, since this face is pretty symmetrical based on the pose.